For a long time now, Hyundai has been leading the industry with a variety of different vehicles that you can drive. Not many automakers have as many ICE/ plug-in hybrids, regular hybrids, and of course, electric vehicles. And Hyundai has just added this one to their fleet, and this is the Ioniq 9. This is a 3-row crossover SUV. It's all electric. It has a massive battery, massive range. Yes, it is related to the Kia EV9, and this is a completely different vehicle. In terms of overall design, I don't think you guys have seen anything quite like this. I certainly haven't. However, I wanted to start with just right away the design, because it just blows me away. Now, for those of you who are car fans and really into overseas vehicles that we're not getting here, Kia and Hyundai have been building vehicles that have really cool exterior designs, and Hyundai has gone this way, pixelation, in terms of adding these pixels all throughout the vehicle. And the cool part about these is that they can actually be modified, and so you can have different lights on, which is really cool. But that's not all. You see down here, this is actually where the headlight is, down here. And all of this is also pixelated in terms of the theme. This is known as a cassette right here, and one of the reasons why you have this dark area is because, well, A, it breaks up the image, but more importantly, this is where a lot of the sensors go. As a matter of fact, you can just see the outline of where a majority of those sensors go for everything from radar, collision, avoidance systems, you name it. It's all stashed in here and up there. Now, let's talk about the hood, which is actually not very big. If you were to look at it from the side, it's just like 3 feet. So even though it's a relatively large vehicle, very stubby hood. And I think the reason for that is because there's no internal combustion engine in here. But this is the cool part, because it's so weird and bizarre, and I love weird and bizarre. All right, let's start here with the fender design. Look at this. Now bear in mind, if you get a calligraphy version of this vehicle, everything is one color. However, all the other versions of it have this black fender cover. Now, the reason why they did this is because they felt that a squared off fender would look masculine, macho, but they weren't able to actually do it in the design because of aerodynamic reasons, okay? So, this is nice and tight and rounded, but they add this in order to make it look square. And this eyebrow here, well, it doesn't really serve a purpose other than design. I am curious to what you think, because it's the first thing that grabbed my attention the minute I looked at this. But there's more. Now, over here, you're going to notice this black section matches this and matches this big, thick black line. And if you follow it, it breaks up the image of the vehicle, actually getting wider to this point here. I think that that's important, otherwise this would probably look a little bit more minivan-ish, that's my guess. But they did something else in order to mitigate that look. You're going to notice that here with this triangular-like design, and look at that. You actually have those little port front glass viewing areas, which I don't know if they actually work or not when you're looking out for an obstacle. I've owned cars that have had these before, and I like the fact it's there. I'm not sure if it's very usable, but here's the cool part: aerodynamics. So look at the way the roof comes up and then drops down sharply back here. It's funny because the designer was saying that if he could, he would stretch this out another 12 feet in order to make this thing far more aerodynamic, because this particular shape, which is, it's evocative of boats in the back, it draws everything back and comes in order to create less wind resistance as it slices through the air. Now, if you look at the back, you're going to notice how far that roof drops down, right? And then, of course, you got the pixelated rear section here for all the lighting. Once again, pixels all throughout. I love the fact that they continued the theme from the front by doing this. This is really cool looking. The roof line is very low back here, meaning that there's not a huge open area here once you open the trunk up, which is interesting. Sometimes there's form and there's function, and then they get crossed, in this case for a logical aerodynamic reason. Yeah, bottom part here, by the way, even more pixels down there. I think those are for reverse lights and for additional braking lights. By the way, you'll notice that the trunk itself, which is here, this section, no lights on this. That way you can open it up legally and not have to worry about any issues about lights being on that section. You're technically not supposed to have any lights on that. Wow, this thing is just, there's so much to unpack with this design. It's really cool. Now, by the way, these, there's one of several different wheel choices available, and as you go up in terms of class, all the way up to the calligraphy, the wheels themselves tend to get a little bit bigger. All right, now let's say you want to charge your vehicle. You have to come all the way to the back passenger side to do it. I wish they did it in the front and center, but whatever. Okay, here we go. Now this leads all the way to a massive battery, 110.3 kilowatt hour battery. That's huge, but they're aiming for over 300 mile range. As such, it makes sense. This does have the 800 volt architecture, meaning that you can plug this in, and in theory, if you have something that can put 350 kilowatts in here in terms of speed, you can do it, if you can find it. So your mileage may vary. Now you may notice this is a CCS setup. Don't worry about that. When this goes into production in the United States, this is going to have the NACS, the Tesla charger, and there will be an adapter for CCS as well. And yeah, look at that, huh? Looking pretty fancy there. And of course, you got the little button here to close the door. I'm going to hit that. Yeah, they've been doing this for a while, but I'm really curious to see how this vehicle performs, because they say you can charge this from 10% to 80% in less than 30 minutes. I think that really does depend on the charger and some other factors, but that's a good start. Okay, check out the V8. No, there's no V8. But there is this. This is a small front trunk section, or frunk, little tiny cargo thing. Apparently this says max load 45 pounds. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend putting too much in here, but you can put like your charger in here, or wet clothing, tonic water, whatever you want to put in here. You have service ports here, here, and here, and then of course winter washer fluid, which is probably the only thing you're going to have to mess with when you own this thing. Also, keep in mind you got a little, I actually like this sound deadening material here. It's also cushiony, so everything that's bouncing up when you're off-roading, has a nice cushion. I don't mind those flush door pulls because they pop out a lot and they're easy to work with. Right. Welcome to the future. That's exactly what they wanted to impart with this design, and I'm really digging it. I'm a huge Blade Runner fan. It's one of my very favorite movies, and this kind of looks like something right out of that. Now you have two 12-inch screens here. I'm going to turn this on, but it's in demo mode, so don't freak out when you hear noises. But essentially, all of your center IP pod stuff right here, this is the main, just like any other Hyundai that's currently on the market, by the way. This screen is very similar to what they already do. And of course, then you have your infotainment system right here. Very simple to use. I have a lot of experience with this because we've had other Hyundais, once again, that have this. Okay, with that, I'm going to shut this off because it's going to make a ton of noise and beep and do crazy stuff while we're talking. Now, look over here. This is the stock for drive, neutral, park. This is your gear lever, so to speak. And the stop button is right there. So it takes some time to learn. It's not my favorite, by the way, but once you figure it out, it's not too hard to use. For instance, driving, that's drive, park, that's park, that's reverse. Relatively simple. And I actually do prefer it over push button ones, just to be honest. Now, they still have some real buttons and dials, and I do appreciate that. So, volume control and tuning, actual dials, and they feel pretty high quality too. And then you have buttons, hard buttons here. They're not just one button, like a tray that you push and maybe it'll work or not. These are actually individual buttons, and they all work for the infotainment system, which is great. But if you are curious about heating and air conditioning, that's down here, and that is its own screen. These have their own little mini screens in here too to give you basic information, but on top of that, actually I'm going to see if we can light that up without going crazy. Here we go. So heated and cooled seats. All of this information is basically driver centric, but the cool part is that you can control a lot of the environmental controls in the back as well from up here, because you are the master driving this car. Now, look at this. 3 USB-Cs down here, and there is, of course, your 12 volt. Push that and it pops open. I really like the quality that they put into this. It really feels good, even though this is pre-production. This is all a very mushy rubber, so good for storage, and there's more storage all the way down there. Oh, but we are not done with storage, my friends, and that's because we have this. But before we get to this, let's talk about this. Now, this is your wireless charging pad, and check out this little pixelated thing going on here. This is just basically rubber to hold your phone. But notice how it matches the theme of the rest of the vehicle on the outside. That is a really cool touch. And I apologize about the music. You also have this here, which actually is your drive select button, including hill descent control. I'm very curious to test that out in the future. Park sensor, defeat, and of course cameras. And this thing has a ton of them. So, yes, here we go. It's going to open. I'm going to open it. And there it is. Oh, it comes with keys, free. Fantastic. Now, this is just a regular storage area, right? But you're going to see something special in the back. But before we go to the back seat, I wanted to point out one more thing. A lot of the materials that are used in this vehicle are recycled, repurposed, and some of them look really nice. I honestly don't know if this is real wood, and I don't care because it looks great. The design ethic they used, by the way, this chrome nickel finish that goes across the air vents, I think is very tasteful. And one final thing, we've got the glove compartment here. That is actually a very useful size. And look how deep it goes. Granted, for the driver, you can't reach it from here unless you have ape-like arms, which I do, but it's really deep. Very cool. Let's check out the back seat. All right. Ooh. I can already tell I'm happy back here because the materials are still quite nice on the door panel. One of the things that happens with a lot of these vehicles is that they chintzy out the door panel materials and they get hard plastics in places where you'd put your arm. This is the same as the front. Oh, and look at this. You got a little shade here. Now, you may have noticed this seat can hold 3 people. This is the maximum occupancy version of the Ioniq 9, and that's because captain's chairs are available. Meaning, though, that this one is the one that you can put the most amount of family into. And look, I'm 6'1", and I am sitting behind myself with no problem. However, putting my feet underneath here, if I were much taller with bigger feet, would probably be a little uncomfortable. So that's one thing, but in terms of headroom, I've got tons. I'm able to lean my head back, and even the brim of my hat, it's just not even touching. Shoulder room is not too bad either. Seat comfort, they're a little bit on the small side in terms of their length. I've noticed the way my legs hang off it, but unless you're a big adult, I don't think you're even going to notice. Now, you have USB-Cs here inset with the seat. A little clever place to put them. And then, and this is the cool part, I think, you're able to open that cargo little holder from the back. Isn't that great? Oh, kids are going to love that, getting in there and stealing your stuff. All right, now there's a bunch of buttons here that are only available to the passenger sitting behind the driver. And I can reach over there and do some amazing things. I'm not sure if I can do them while someone's there. But for instance, let's say, oh, I don't know, Roman and Tommy are up front and I want to be, hey, you guys need to relax and have a comfortable moment. I hit that, and then the seat goes like that. I don't really know the significance to having the controls back here to make it do that, but I really do like the fact that it'll do it. And that definitely looks like a more comfortable position. So with one push, she should go back. There we go. I can also make it go back and forth and lean back and lean forward from here, which is interesting. Oh, this is also interesting. Check this out. Isn't that cool? Pixelated little things going on here. Also, heating and air conditioning controls back here. Outboard seats, heated, temperature controls. Yeah. Now, if you want to get into the third row, there are 2 buttons, at least on each side, for you to activate in order to make the seats go. The one I'm going to use is right down here, and I'm going to push that button, and she flows forward. Okay. Now, it looks like there's better access, by the way, with that side, just an FYI. However, I'm just going to sneak on back here. All right, I am now in the third row, and I'm going to pull this seat back. Huh? I will be hornswoggled. This is very comfortable. Now, bear in mind, this seat is not all the way back. It came back allowing probably a smaller child and or adult to go up in front of me, and I could probably have this thing come back even further, which is great, and it can lean the seat back a little bit more. Look at that. So they can be relaxed, and I still have space. I'm 6'1", so the fact is that I do have some decent space, provided that this thing is not slid all the way back. Now back here, you do have these vents, just like you do on the second row, which are on both sides. You have cup holders here, and there's a USB-C on this side and on this side. Very nifty. And there's this little pull strap. I wonder what it does. I'm going to pull it. Oh! So, little Timmy's out of the car, and you need to get some stuff in there. From here, you can make that happen. And yeah, I think it's time, A, to get out, and B, to check out the cargo. Okay, packed in here like a sardine. I'm going to push this button to get out. Pray for me. Okay, that wasn't too bad. I'm the least flexible person at TFL. I have no complaints. By the way, I wanted to show you something I think we may have missed. Look at this door panel. I love when people do things like this, a little extra attention, these little waves right here, this very nice pewtered finish, this pull handle. It's just unique. It's cool. Once again, it's like the future. Remember I told you how this thing looks kind of small in the back? Well, let me show you. First of all, to open it, there's a little button here, just under the Q. That's a James Bond reference. No, it's not. Well, it could be. Push that. All right. Now, you're going to notice that this is a fairly tight opening in terms of size, right? But it's pretty deep. Okay, so a couple things before we get to folding the seats. We've got over here, check this out. You flip this up, and this is a hold for the height of your tailgate. Nifty to have, and you have a 12 volt over here and some tie downs, by the way. But then over there on that side, you have a 125 volt outlet. Yep, nice little flippy right there. That's kind of cool. Another tie down in that area as well. Now, underfloor right here, real quick, there is storage. Once again, I think this is adequate for perhaps the charger, you know, when you're traveling. Maybe a little bit more because there's little tiny stash sections over here and over here as well. Okay, now let's fold the third row. I think it's fairly simple. Yep, and ba-bam! Make sure no kids are in there when you're doing it, or you could if you're, you know, angry. All right, there we go. So that is folded. Right now, if we switch positions and I go over there, I'm going to trigger the second row mechanically. Ba-boom! Oh, and there's one more. Wham! That is a fairly flat loading floor, my friends. So even though the entrance into this area is fairly small, if you start looking in there, you can see clearly that it's kind of a carved out cave. I think they did that on purpose because they want to be like organic in their design. I'm kidding. I have no idea. I'm pretty sure it's aerodynamics. I have a very special guest. Can you please tell everybody who you are and, of course, what you do with Hyundai?
Yeah, my name's Simon Losby, and I'm head of the Hyundai Design Center. And so that design center actually comprises not only our main studio in Namyang, we have 8 other studios around the world. In the US, in Irvine, we have a studio. In Europe, we have a studio. 2 studios in India, 2 in China, 1 in Japan, 2 in Korea. And so we have an amazing global team that I'm lucky enough to work with.
So would you say it's an international team?
Totally, totally. And the benefit of that is that we really get a read on similarities and differences around the world. And we have, sounds sort of mundane, but we have a design project management team in Namyang. Sunyal runs it, and they connect everybody so well. So we're hugely connected, regularly in contact, and all projects are managed across the multiple studios around the world.
Well, that leads me directly to, and pardon the pun, the genesis of the Ioniq 9, because you know you have these connected design studios, right?
Yeah.
And you're leading this charge into this vehicle. How did it start? How did it become what it is now?
Well, we, myself and Sangyap Lee, Sangyap couldn't be here today. He's in Miami with our big dealer conference there.
Okay.
But we work very closely together with our teams to create the briefing. What is the start point? And we wanted the biggest Ioniq, the most SUV-like Ioniq. But we looked at the market to say, what is accepted as an SUV these days? And even back then, 2020, 2021, you see this bandwidth from sort of coupe-like SUVs to big boxes.
Right.
We realized there's a massive amount of flexibility in what we can do, but then the focus was from a customer-centric perspective. What is the customer actually really going to use the vehicle for? And what is the customer mindset for an efficient SUV? And that very quickly, we wanted to create a unique profile that housed the people and the stuff, but worked efficiently to use less energy between A and B. And that was our main driving between to create the silhouette of the car. What we also did at the same time, which was really exciting, especially in our Irvine team, because the biggest car, probably the biggest market also US, is with our American team, we got everybody to work on their personal stories of SUV. How do you personally understand SUVs?
Right.
And what is your personal experience of that? How does that compare to all our marketing feedback, all our headquarters feedback, and all the customer feedback? And we built a board of people brought their own like family photos in of this is me. And there's one photo, it's way too small in here, but on this page is from the US team, there's this little picture here in the middle. Very hard to see, but there's a little boy standing on the left of that Range Rover back then. That's Andrew Moyer, when he was, I think, like 7 or 8 years old, from the US team. And that's his scene with his family. They lived, I believe, if I get it right, in Afghanistan at the time. And they were on a picnic on the desert, and these wonderful stories came out. But you see these pictures of the usability. It's all about how many people do we fit. And of course, there are station wagons there, which was the previous version of an SUV.
It really was.
Before it got taller and higher. And it's all that content of usability and how much stuff, and especially in the US, the tailgate party, or you go somewhere, you sleep in the car, look at the view. We've got to make sure this car works for that. And so in that process, when we got to if we go through, find a side view, I must have a side view in here somewhere. Here we go. Let's find the favorite side view of the car. Not that one. Too many sketches.
No, that's quite all right.
Keep going through. You can never find the sketch when you want it, right? It's always hidden away. But I'm looking for Woo Hyun's side view sketch here. And we realized that a normal SUV has a big hood because there's an internal combustion engine there. We don't need that. So we can pull the cowl, pull the interior forwards as much as possible, give a very fast windscreen, and stretch the length with this beautiful single arch over the rear, accelerating down low behind the rear occupant, which gives us the diagonal between the cowl point and the rear aero separation line, the biggest interior space. So when we talked about how do we make the car big but not daunting. So we have to break that size up a little bit so it's got a really nice shoulder, the tapering towards the boat tail character of the rear then gives us this aesthetic with a strong shoulder. It doesn't feel daunting size-wise. Some people are daunted by a car that looks too big.
Sure.
And so that was what we played, that kind of TARDIS-like effect.
It's interesting. I mean, we're talking about a 110.2-inch wheelbase.
123.2-inch wheelbase.
123.2
yeah,
inch.
if I get my maths right. Yeah. 3,130 millimeters.
That is extremely long.
Yeah.
Right. And so there aren't that many. In fact, none of your regular SUVs, like the Palisade,
no.
They have nowhere near that wheelbase.
I mean, good you bring the Palisade up. We have a conventional big SUV already. We don't need another one.
Right.
This car's for, let's call it an efficiency mindset, a clean mindset, for an electric mindset. Not everybody's there yet. That's okay. We have a Palisade for you. And those who are there, we create here a car which has basically a better drag coefficient than most sedans. But it's a big, you walk up to the car, it's a big car.
Yeah.
With 3 full rows of seating, a beautiful muscular haunch at the rear. And we want it still to be emotional and attractive. And with the square arches, give that SUV ruggedness character. And that's that boxiness which just gives us that more rugged character.
I wanted to ask you about the eyebrows because that is part of that squared off fender area.
Yeah.
And that's completely unique. I've never seen that used in any other auto design
That's
ever.
right. So
here
we've got an eyebrow in body color there, but we have this black finisher which closes the gap around the tires. So we get the square character.
Right, but you have the aerodynamics of
But
the
you have the
arch.
aerodynamics of, we said to the team, flushness. Where can we make it more flush and smoother? And I got the actual stone from the presentation, trying to get that smoothness in the front, which is just that, it's just one unit. And it's much more difficult when you remove stuff than when you add stuff. And so this was the fun with the design. There's only one sharp line on the front, and the rest is just a smooth integrated volume which flows to the rear and then is cut.
That seems to include the cassette as well.
It includes the cassette as well. So the cassette, as you mentioned here, we were discussing this earlier. The cassette, we've got the seamless horizon, pixel horizon lighting across the front. One piece. In one, you should see the factory that makes those things. The tool's huge.
I would imagine.
And then you have underneath, in this zone, you have 6 pixels are the high beam, and 6 pixels of the low beam. And then between those 2 units, here and here, you have this cassette, which has the radar, camera, parking sensors. We've had other versions with LiDARs in here as well, which we can upgrade to if we need them ever. We have the camera in the windscreen.
Right.
And there's also radars in the corners, which are hidden. You can't see behind the surfaces, which measure what's going on behind you and in front of you, and on the rear corners as well. But we're expecting at some stage, most likely somebody comes up and says, we've got a new sensor. It's even better. Where can we put it? In the cassette. We exchange that component. And that's
because it's modular, you're able to pop it,
modular,
right.
and it's the new version of a grille. And this itself has transparency, so you see behind the surface the pixels.
Yeah.
Inside that, and that's that product design influence that our designers are working with to give it that techie integrated feeling.
Last question I wanted to start with, actually you can see it here, is
Yeah.
character lines.
Yes.
Because that's something that you've definitely integrated. And this is sort of an SUV-like thing going on here.
A little bit of protection. This has a sort of a 3/4 of an inch step. So we protect the cassette and the lamps from impact. And then within that, you'll see when you look closely, there are 2 active air flaps. This unit comes up over the top. These are absolutely flush. The section of those, totally flush. And working with our engineers, we showed them the pebble, we said, we want it to be totally flush. And they created an opening door that doesn't rotate open. If you do that, you need a big gap at the top for it to rotate behind the surface.
Sense. Sure.
So what they did instead, they have the surface and a one mechanism. As it starts to rotate, it moves it rearwards, and then it clicks and rolls over the top. So you've got this dual motion. So when it's open, it's completely hidden. So it just completely out of the way, and it means the whole of this space is then cooling space. You don't have the door in the way in the middle of the flap.
Gotcha.
Beautiful technical solution to give us the flushness, and if it's more flush, it's more efficient. It's more aerodynamic, and so that was our fun at the front, and this beautiful front then gets to the back and is cut and elongate, truncated at the rear, and the aero guys love that.
Now, along the side of the vehicle, I've noticed there's a massive character line. That's that plastic component that's going along the bottom.
The black line,
the black line,
rising line,
right.
exactly.
That's the big one. But the one that fascinates me, you briefly spoke about when we were doing the presentation, and that is this line
diagonal.
here, right?
The diagonal, yeah.
And that actually is part of Korean culture. You were talking. I mean, it's just a fascinating perspective. And
let me find the right page. Here we go.
Yeah, there we go.
So this is the traditional Korean dress, the hanbok. When I arrived in Korea 5.5 years ago, I asked the team to help me understand Korean culture. Help me understand the roots, the genesis of the Korean culture.
Right.
Which can we apply that to the genesis of this car? And not only this car, but all our cars. And they built a wall of about 1,000 images for me. And I said, all designers said, please help me here. Bring 10 images each of anything to do with Korea. We had pictures to do with politics, pictures to do with hierarchy, to do with K-pop music, to do with media, design, architecture, graphics, you name it. And fashion was there. And in fashion, I was looking at this single diagonal line for the collar. If you go to a wedding and you see, let me take my poster out of the front here. If you go to a wedding, the mothers will always wear the traditional outfit. Actually, every wedding I've been to in Korea, they have a pink dress or a blue dress. There's a single diagonal line where the collar overlaps. And that for me became the hanbok line. That became that single diagonal, which is where the front muscle finishes, the rear muscle begins.
Yeah, because you can see how it tapes off
and over. It tapes up and goes over. And that diagonal is the hanbok line.
Gotcha.
And it defines the muscle where, if you look at the top view of the car, let's find the top view, the boat tail look for the aesthetics. It's in here somewhere. There. That's the rear. No, I wanted the rear top view coming up. We'll find it. Can edit. There we go. So we talk about the boat tail as the premium boats. It's a very premium character. The car does the same. In plan shape, the hanbok line is down here. It connects, gets smaller towards the rear, and then we truncate it. This is the aero separation edge, which is so efficient aerodynamically, gets us into the 0.26s for the American version, which is, SUVs are often in the 0.3s.
Right.
And so this car really is efficient. It just uses less energy between A and B. And that's the boat tail aesthetic connected to that hanbok line, which gives front muscle to rear muscle.
One final question I have in terms of design.
Yeah.
It's a personal thing. I'm a huge Blade Runner fan. It's one of my favorite movies.
Let's get to the front picture. Okay,
so you know what I'm talking about.
I know you're going to come to the robotic character of the front, I think.
That is precisely. But even the interior design strikes me as a very futuristic.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and this is just, I'm not blowing smoke or anything else. This is exactly how I feel about it. It definitely feels like the next step on evolution in terms of the design character of the front and the interior of actually the entire design of the vehicle. Really blew me away. And
thank you.
It's very cool because it's like, okay, this is tangible future tech.
It's now.
Yeah.
All of these items function. They're not there as a bit of, styling. There is a function with the DRL lights, the position light, the driving lights, parking lights, the active air flaps. There is a function behind the tech in that integrated form, which, we do talk about it being a little bit robotic. That'll continue with our design language into other vehicles.
I had a feeling
today.
Well, this is really one of your halo vehicles in that respect in terms of its placement. So
it's our biggest. It's probably the most expensive sort of production Hyundai, and like we talked, the wheelbase, 123.2-inch wheelbase. It is our biggest car, and people have asked me about why the 7 concept, and now it's Ioniq 9. We feel this is the biggest, but that gives us space for others. And underneath 5, there are numbers too.
There are indeed.
Let's not forget. So our chess pieces that we talk about, and the language of our principle of each of our vehicles being like a chess piece. They have a different role to play in the team, and they have a different move that they make. Same with our cars. We don't need all cars to do all things for all people. So Ioniq 9 has possibly it's the king, it's the biggest, but we have other vehicles with different meanings to be more customer-centric with their focus, because not everybody wants the same car as their kids or their parents, because they have different use scenarios.
Hence, not every chess piece moves the same way.
Hence, exactly, they have different moves. And this is something Sang-Yup, Luc Donkervolk, and me, our designers, I'm just representing a really big team of talented people. And everybody says to me, God, why are you always in such a good mood? And I say, well, look at the projects we have. And every day my calendar is completely full. And I look forward to it because I know we're going to talk to good people about really cool stuff. And we're working on such an amazing portfolio with a company and an innovation drive, which we put ourselves under pressure to keep delivering and keep going up. And we feel Ioniq 9 has just gone up to the next level of what we can deliver.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate your time. So does our audience. Thank you so much.
Great
I had
to
a
meet
blast.
you. Thank you. Great to meet you. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure. One other thing I wanted to mention is that this vehicle allows you to have bi-directional charging, meaning that you can actually take energy from the vehicle and put it into something, a house, a campsite, what have you. In addition, this vehicle, if you have it plugged in, will be able to actually handle charge from your house, and if there's additional, in some cases, places where you can unload that energy and actually get paid for it, this car can actually serve as sort of a battery bank in order to make that happen. One of the reasons why there's capacity, serious capacity inside for the passengers is the fact that you have a very long wheelbase, the longest of any Hyundai product that has a battery. In fact, this is 123.2 inches long wheelbase wise. Now, if you look at other vehicles like the Hyundai Palisade, which directly competes with this in terms of passenger capacity, it's much, 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 much smaller. I'm referring to, of course, the wheelbase. So this extremely long wheelbase, well, there's a battery down there. That's one of the reasons why, of course, but also something else to consider. There are several different configurations that you can get in terms of power. As for numbers, general information, I've got lots. No, I don't, because nothing's available quite yet. Spring 2025 is when this goes into production here, and hopefully before then we'll have all those numbers. This vehicle will be debuting at the Los Angeles Auto Show, which is right around the corner from the time that we filmed this. So by all means, check it out and stay tuned for a lot more coming on this massive EV for the TFL car and TFL EV. This is Nathan. I'll see you next time.